On the surface, Remake Our Life seems like a generic wish fulfillment anime about a guy who's in his late 20s and decided that he made the wrong choice for a career and wanted to go back in time and choose an art school instead. And wouldn't you know it, he got this chance to go back 10 years and remake the choice of which university he wants to attend, and he decides to go to art school where he meets all these amazing people, which in the future he idolized. And in some way, this show is wish fulfillment, but it's also so much more than that. And if you really don't like wish fulfillment animes, I'd recommend watching this wish fulfillment anime. If all that sounds interesting to you, please click off the video and check out the show. I went into the show blind, and if I think I knew what was going to happen, I would not have enjoyed the show nearly as much as I did. I'll be structuring this video a little bit weirdly because throughout this video I'll be getting more and more into spoiler territory, and at any point, if you want to click off of this video and just watch the show, feel free to. For this next bit, I'll go into a little bit of what can possibly hint at some spoilers and themes of the show, but I won't go completely in to break down every plot detail, whereas you might know some things that are coming up, but you won't know exactly what it is and exactly how it occurs, whereas it still might surprise you. But again, me describing it here, if it allows you to get hooked on it, then it is totally worth it. Remake Our Life is kind of a subversive critique of the genre that is wish fulfillment, while also completely delivering its own wish fulfillment avenues to make it feel optimistic, which is very rare. It's a show that managed to give out a message without being super taboo or super esoteric or just being bizarre at points. It's somehow extremely wholesome and extremely wish-fulfilling, while also dishing out criticism of its own genre that it's perfectly emulating. It's really weird. If I were to compare it to other shows that I've watched, I think that it's kind of similar to Steins Gate, mixed with Plastic Memory, mixed with insert wish fulfillment anime here. What I'll say is that by reading the description and by watching the first few episodes, I thought it would be a show that would go in on the depths of filmmaking, the importance of how to manage a game development team, but it really doesn't go very deep on those, and the actual few points that it does hit feels very unrealistic and at points kind of insulting to the people who actually work in those industries. But apart from that, the actual character growth and the overall structure and narrative in this story is good. Just don't focus on the actual game developing parts. And what the show ended up being is a show that critiques the hero mindset and the fantasized idea of the person that can solve everyone's problems. And I'll leave this minor spoiler section at this. Ultimately, this critique of a altruistic, heroic protagonist figure is what made this show really stand out to me from a lot of the other shows in the crowd. And as someone who enjoys trashy wish fulfillment from here and there, this show also manages to give me some of that while also critiquing what I'm enjoying here. And really, that's as far as this minor spoiler theme section goes. After this, I'll be going into some plot and some general discussion of the show and my thoughts on it. Because, yeah, I have some things to say about the show. So, if you watched this far and haven't watched the show yet, do click off. This is your final major plot spoiler warning. After this, I will be discussing specific points of the plot and points of contention of the show, and why I enjoyed them, for the most part. I'm going to be going into the assumption now that you've watched the show, and so I'm just going to be giving some reaction bits of just how the show is paced, how certain plot points were handled, and just overall what made me think that this show really deserves more attention. First of all, let me just touch on the pacing really quickly. The show goes at a pretty rapid speed. It goes real fast, but it's kind of consistently fast. And if you think about it, it's paced in a certain way where college does kind of fly. These parts of your life do fly. They stay with you, but it feels like they just go so fast. There's the saying that when you're having fun, things go fast. And yeah, I think that's what either intentionally or unintentionally, this show's pacing is doing, and I'm perfectly fine with how rapid at points that this show is. Personally, I've been in leadership positions at a lot of points in my life, and I had to slowly evolve, and I'm still working on how to be a leader. Kyoya here has a very elementary mindset, where he just kind of solves everyone's problems, He gives everyone the push, and yeah, they do it. And he sometimes overrides ideas, compromises ideas, and just tells people what they need to do, and yeah, it happens. He makes things happen, which is at points how I am, but it made me realize that it's a really isolating feeling. You're helping people do their parts, yes, but how much of that is actually you doing your part, and how much of other people's individuality, independence, and growth are you hindering by doing this? And in this anime, it shows you that. It shows you a future where our main boy, Kyoya, just helps all of these people that he used to idolize, and they ended up kind of growing dependent on him, or seeing themselves inferior to him, or just feeling defeated because of his compromises in a lot of different ways. How Shinoaki, how Nanako, and how Tsurayuki all drifted away from their normal paths is because of Kyoka's action, and they each drifted away because of a different effect of his action, and I just felt that was very well done. I loved it a lot. Of course, this protagonist is still pretty cookie cutter, but at points at least he's aware. He's not stupid, he's not dense, and he learns to question his protagonistism. Also, a lot of people were very divided on the final episode where he traveled back in time to essentially unbirth his daughter, which I think it's not fair, because technically it's his own consciousness traveling back. The universe where he had that daughter is still going forward, but it's just his consciousness is abandoning that. That universe is still going to be perfectly fine with him as the father. And the other part is that he never got to live those years leading up to that. He just woke up and suddenly had a 5 or 6 year old, and he was married to Shinoaki. He got all the rewards and saw all the consequences without putting in basically any of the work. Which is why I think his final decision is fair. First of all, he's not abandoning his daughter, he's just transferring this version of his consciousness to another body of his that was in the past. And he wants to experience all this hardship before the reward. Because if you just shower someone with rewards regularly, it's not happiness that they'll find. Even if they have the most idyllic, happy life that they're in, it's not fitting. Imagine suddenly getting transported into the body of insert rich person. Sure, it might feel really good. Okay, that's not a good analogy. There's a lot of rich people who didn't work for the reward. But let's just assume this rich person did work for this reward. You go into their bodies, you have a bunch of wealth, and you spend it like a madman. What's next? You didn't work for that. Why? Don't you feel guilt? You might not deserve this. And that's what our protagonist feels. That's what Kyoya feels. And that's exactly why Kyoya decides to go back in time and experience these points of his college life again. Oh yeah, and as far as the supernatural elements of the show, I don't know what's going on. I think it's fun, but it's sad that I've been seeing this show hasn't been doing super well in Japan. Although this is an English video, so I'm not sure how much Japanese audience reach it's gonna get. But it hasn't been doing super well, so it may not get a sequel, but there's a lot of elements in the show that I would like to see expanded. Although there's also the light novel that I can go read. Either way, the show was very subversive while also being what I wanted when I clicked on the show. And that's what made this just really resonant. It did exactly what I wanted it to do, but also told me off for liking what I wanted it to do, and left me off with I think a more realistic message about leadership about heroism and about being altruistic and trying to help people out. And how much of that is actually selfish? How much of that is actually helping them? And how much of your own life should you let other people help you? Because I'm a guy, for a long time, I liked helping others, but I couldn't bear to have others help me. And that's not how things work. It gave you a feeling of isolation. And I think this show really hit that chord in me. And that's why, even though it's nowhere from the best show this season, it is definitely something that is worth your attention and worth checking out. And I don't know. You guys are all people who watch the show at this point, so I don't know what's even the point of like saying, yeah, that's why you should watch the show. And also, I'm just kind of rambling at this point because I've said that this is going to be my thoughts. It's a bit less structured. I'm no longer selling a product. I'm just kind of discussing my thoughts about the product. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on Remake Our Life. I enjoyed it a lot. And it really surprised me. This entire season of anime really surprised me. And yeah, here's my bi-monthly anime video. I don't think it's not a thing. It's just I've watched these shows and they've connected to me really suddenly that I felt this urge to make a video on them. Anyways, bye.